Good morning and welcome to Prop Till You Drop, NFL player prop bets. Week 15 of the NFL season, and we're here with the fantasy football degenerate, Jen Ryan, and the old man of fantasy, Emil Cadlick. How's it going, Jen?
Good, going pretty good. Busy weekend, I'm sure, for myself and everybody else. We had some Saturday action last night. Didn't get any player props in, but I did bet the over. I took the Bills laying 6 and the over in that game. So that hit, which was nice. Gave me a little more pad for today, of course, and I got very lucky on a UFC parlay. So the bankroll is good for Sunday. Yeah.
Well, it'll be some interesting ones today. So let's see if I can't get this up and we can. Oh, here we are. Quarterbacks. Beautiful.
Kicking them off the right way. So right out of the gate, I have to tell you, this Lamar Jackson passing prop, 2 touchdowns at plus 120. Yes, we'd love the payout. But of all the props that we're going to talk about today, and again, we give you 20 props a week, I am the most nervous about this one. It's tricky. It's not like Jackson has a ton of receiving talent around him to throw touchdowns to. And of all these quarterbacks in the league, he's as big a threat, if not one of the biggest threats, to, of course, poach his own passing touchdown and run one in. But again, it's true because it's not touchdowns, it's passing touchdowns. It's just tough that the Ravens don't have this guy that you're like, well, he's definitely going to get a touchdown. I mean, I guess that guy's probably Mark Andrews, but Jaguars defense terrible, 28 touchdowns through the air this season. Only the Jets have allowed more. Coin flip bet for me. Payouts got me going for it. I mean, I just know he's going to rush one in, but if he can at least throw 2, we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. What an incredible game that was last week against Cleveland. Did you enjoy that?
So not only did I enjoy it, but our favorite book, Sugar House, had a prop bet last week. It was plus 500 for both Lamar and Nick Chubb to score a rushing touchdown, right? That hit in the first 12 minutes of the game. And then it hit again. Like, they both ran for two rushing touchdowns. And I was joking around. I went on the live chat with the customer service in the book, and I was like, so I get paid twice for that, right? You know, because the prop hit twice. Yeah. And they're like, oh, Jen, come on. But what a game that was.
Yeah, I can't believe that game. I just couldn't believe it. It was just and then he comes back out and throws a touchdown to Hollywood Brown, and it was really a great game. You just got to enjoy those games, no matter whether you're winning or losing at fantasy. You gotta appreciate those games.
It was awesome football. I mean, it really was. It was like a nail biter. I mean, that's what I like to watch. You know, of course, I like to watch my bank account go up, but I'll take good football almost anything, almost every day of the week. But speaking of those Browns, we have an interesting Mayfield prop here. At first, I looked at it and I see Mayfield rushing 5.5, and I'm like, oh, come on, he must do that every game, right? But then, of course, I go on our player pages on Football Diehards, and if you look at Baker's rushing, he'll either run for like 10, 15, 20 yards or like 1 yard, and that's it. There's not really an in-between. And I guess you just assume that Baker gets a decent amount of yards on the ground because he's so mobile, right? I mean, he's quietly one of the better quarterbacks at the bootleg. He's like a what Aaron Rodgers does throwing on the run is what Baker Mayfield probably aspires to. So you get this perception that he's a mobile quarterback, but he does not get a ton of rushing yards. But he's capable. He's more capable than, say, a Phillip Rivers, right? Like, you wouldn't bet this for Phillip Rivers. But I see 5.5, and I'm like, that's one run. I kind of like it for Baker.
Yeah, it's an interesting bet. It looks so funny, 5.5 yards, so small. But he ran for 25 last week and a touchdown or something like that. Let me go look real quick.
Yeah.
23 yards on 5 carries. Kind of an interesting bet. I like that.
I was shocked at how few rushing yards he has in games. Like I said, I just feel like anytime I'm watching a Browns game, he's running, but I guess he's just running out and throwing it. Another rushing quarterback, of course, we have Cam Newton. I feel like this is the only Cam Newton bet you can really take these days is for Cam Newton to score a touchdown. His rushing yard prop is also in play, of course, but we know Newton. We know his style. He is the goal line back. We just need to get him in the red zone. Back in week 1 in his debut, he rushed for 2 touchdowns on the Dolphins. I don't think we need to look at week 1 and say, oh, that's going to happen again. But I think we can expect him to punch one in today.
Well, Damian Harris is out, if I recall correctly. So you've got James White, Sony Mitchell, and Newton as potential running backs inside the 5-yard line. So I think that increases the probability of Newton getting some shots at the goal line carries there, more than he usually gets. So yeah, that sounds like a smart bet to me.
Sure, and I just feel like he's the first option when they're on the goal line. It's okay. We know he's probably going to dive over. So
yeah, definitely, no doubt about that.
But we like our quarterbacks to throw the ball. We don't need to talk about running quarterbacks all day long. So that's why I have this Mahomes prop in here. Total passing yards, 315.5. Normally you see a 300-point line and you're like, oh, geez, I don't know. But when you've got one of these guys who, for me, this is a healthy Breeze, Aaron Rodgers, these guys who are consistently in these games where there's expected to be more than 50 points. But this actually, for a guy like Mahomes, to me at least, this seems a little bit low. This prop has hit every week since week 8. I get that the Saints defense is very good. I get that the Saints are home, but this is Patrick Mahomes. He's probably the best quarterback in football. So 315 yards. I guess I think if that's what Mahomes throws for, we might consider it like a down day for him.
Yeah, that's a lot of weeks. 7 weeks in a row or 6 weeks in a row. The other thing is New Orleans, Kansas City's kind of slowed down in their running attack. They kind of flip around a little bit lately, but if New Orleans is going to, they may stop that running attack a little bit more than you would think they would. I mean, anyway, it may help the passing game is what I'm trying to spit out here on Sunday morning. So despite it being a very tough defense and on the road at New Orleans, they're probably going to pass a lot more than they run, so maybe that'll make up the probability of still getting over 315.5 is pretty good.
Sure, and 52.5 points in this game, I think that over smashes. And if you think there's going to be a ton of points in the game, you have to assume the quarterbacks are going to account for some of those points.
What's this interception thing you've got here?
That's what I said. I said no one is perfect, right? Mahomes is the best, but he is not infallible. Look, I think they could pick him off one time. He had that ugly game last week where we saw, he's seeing ghosts for a minute there. Saints defense is excellent. If this payout wasn't in the positive, if this was a negative, I might have looked past it. But I mean, one pick plus 120. I think with all the positives that are going to come out of this game, there's certainly room for error.
Oh, that sounds good. I had a question what you thought about Kirk Cousins this week as far as is there a prop on him that you've seen?
Oh, there's props on everything, Emil. This is why we love Sugar House.
Except every time I ask, somebody's not propped up there.
Well, on Fridays and Saturdays, sometimes they wait till Sunday morning.
Cool.
Sometimes
that sounds
they do.
Good. I love it.
Let's see. Kirk Cousins, they have his passing yards at 250.5.
Yeah.
They have his touchdowns at 1.5, and they have him throwing a pick, 0.5. So,
okay.
There's action.
Yeah, he's at home this week. I just feel like he may do over his norm. He does well at home, so he may be a guy. I'll have to go look at those numbers. I haven't really analyzed what he had, but maybe he's a potential possible prop bet right there this week. That's all I had. I didn't have any other sneaky quarterbacks. So
I'm sure some people are relying on him in their fantasy playoffs too. So
yeah,
gonna want Cousins to hit that over for sure.
Sounds good. All right, off to running backs.
Yeah, so we'll start with that game you were just talking about, the Vikings and Bears game. I've got David Montgomery, total rushing over 60.5. He's had 2 big games back-to-back, and now we're seeing his rushing line still just at 60.5. They haven't really adjusted for it. If you go to our fantasy points allowed tab on Football Diehards, you will see that the Vikings are allowing an average just on the ground alone of 111 yards over their past 4 games. So they're getting beaten up on the ground, and Montgomery suddenly seems to be a bit of a focal point of this offense. So you see 60.5, and you're like, well, geez, that's low enough. Sorry, my cat is crashing the show. Get out of here, buddy. Anytime there's a back with bell cow potential who is not competing really for touches, I see 60.5, and then I see what the Vikings have been doing recently, right? Because on that tab, we show what they've done the whole season, which, of course, is applicable. But I really like to know what a team has done as of late, which is why I love that we have that 4-week data.
Yeah, 4 weeks.
And they're just getting, they're just giving up 100-yard rushing, 111 over the last 4. So you have to like those.
That's crazy
together.
Yeah, that sounds like a very interesting bet.
Yeah, I think they booked in and adjust enough to his rushing yards.
And they're tough too, so it's good to see a few of these.
I have to tell you, the running back props. I know every week I say mostly the tight end props are tough, and we'll get to that because they're really tough this week. But the running back props were so tough this week. So you'll see here, I really had to dig deep a little bit. And Ito Smith is an example of digging deep. I mean, Todd Gurley's knee is an absolute mess. We don't really have a rushing attack in Atlanta right now. And then, you bring in Ito over his last 3 games. He's averaging 10.5 carries. Gurley's been really, really dinged up. I don't think 33.5 yards is a big ask in this game.
Yeah, I like that bet. Let's see. Let's go look real quickly. 42 last week against the Chargers, 36 against New Orleans, 65 rushing yards against Las Vegas Raiders.
And those 3 games. Those are the 3 games where Gurley's really just been a non-factor. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. At the end of the year, is he washed up? Is that knee bad enough? I don't know if we'll really know. And we'll see what action they take in the Atlanta takes in the draft, etc.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like Gurley's good for half a season, and it's a shame, considering just how good he is.
Yeah, it's really sad. And, I remember you and I talking about, and I was looking at the data, how he doesn't do much until they get into the red zone and they played him. So it's almost like they know they only have so many carries a game and they save him for the red zone. And that hasn't even worked out the last few weeks.
Yeah, in terms of fantasy, I think Gurley is going to be treading into the territory next season of a guy you like more maybe in standard than PPR.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
For you psychos that are still playing standard.
There are a lot of them out there, but PPR is definitely popular.
Another guy who was a backup but sort of became the focal point maybe a little bit, J.D. Mckissick, receiving yards. We know they like to use him in the receiving game, over 27.5. We have a little bit of a revenge narrative here. He did used to be a Seahawk. Look, we only need about 30 yards receiving from him. He had 70 last week. Back-to-back games, this went over, and then 2 weeks prior than that, it went over again. I figure with Haskins getting the start, there's going to be a lot of dinking and dunking underneath. I like this. It just seems low. Even with Gibson coming back. I mean, Gibson, last I read, he was playing.
I heard he was doubtful.
There's props for Gibson, which is interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's kind of still up in the air. That's a tough one. I can't hit the right button on my computer here.
I think, it's almost looking like...
Let me go look at the official report real quick and see what it says. It has him as doubtful on the NFL's official report from Friday, which is a couple days old. So I think we may want to do a little more research on that. I don't know if he's playing. And let me make this point. If I'm sorry.
I said, who would know if he's playing is the Twitter land. They seem to know the answers to this stuff.
And Bob will get the official word on that. I can't. Here, just a sec. When does that game played? Washington football team is the early game, so we're going to know that before we have to finalize our bets, I'm assuming. And that obviously is an important thing. Because let me go back to McKissick. McKissick got 70 yards against Pittsburgh. And then last week against San Francisco, that was 70 yards receiving. He only got 18 and he got 68 yards rushing. So whether, if Gibson's in, maybe his role switches a little because he catches the ball more. And if Gibson's not in, he may be running more. And so therefore that 33 becomes in play. So that's kind of weird.
Sure.
I think we may want to watch that here in the next hour and a half and see where Gibson folds. But man, McKissick's been very productive. It's just interesting that his receiving and rushing flipped with Antonio out in Week 14 against San Francisco. Anyway,
absolutely, and
information. Not sure how to follow that, but information to be used.
Yeah, and look, if you are reading reports and you're stalking the beat writers on Twitter and you think that Gibson is leaning a little bit more towards downfield, either way, I will say this. If Gibson plays, this line is going to change. So if you like this bet, I would get the bet in before the injury, before it's announced, basically.
Interesting. Sounds good.
Yeah. And then moving on to Philly, Miles Sanders, total rushing yards, 61.5. This is just I tend to look at RB1s, guys who don't have a lot of competition for touches, and when I start with my running back props, that's where I start, and I look and I see, okay, who's really going to take rushing touches for Miles Sanders? You've got Boston Scott here and there, but since Miles Sanders is back, he is the guy, right? Arizona's susceptible on the ground, averaging, again, over the last 137 yards. We need 62 from Sanders rushing. We just have to hope that Jalen Hurts doesn't take away too many rushing yards from him. Interesting,
yeah. He didn't do a lot in Week 13 against Green Bay. Green Bay only got 31 yards rushing and had one target, 0 catches. But week against New Orleans at home, he really popped out, 115. So maybe things are changing, and maybe they're getting more opportunities at the offense because Hurts is playing better than Wentz. And add Arizona. I like this bet. It's kind of hard not to like this bet. Of course, we are gambling. We don't really know what's going to happen, but this is a nice bet. 61.5.
Yeah, 62 yards. And for those who have him in fantasy, you probably spent third, fourth round pick on him. He's been hurt so much. You need him this week, and you definitely need him to get at least 62 yards. And then our last bet, this is our fun bet. We've got the Breeze effect. He's back, and if Drew Brees is back, that means Alvin Kamara is back. Look, 7 catches is a lot, but I'm here for it. I see it happening, and I think the book agrees. I mean, look at that line, minus 148. It's not like they're giving us a plus payout on this. I'm expecting Alvin Kamara to have the biggest game that he's had since, Drew Brees went down with injury. Even though Brees isn't 100%, I think this favors Kamara's skill set.
Well, he got 10 targets and 7 catches last week, and with Brees back, they lost a game. They want to have that home field advantage. Kansas City's it's going to be hard to win this game. We're hoping for, a blowout. Not a blowout, but, a lot of scoring. I wish it wasn't as high as 6.5, but gosh, I want to play Kamara this week and just about everything I can, DFS, gambling, etc. Because with the switch, I really think that they're ready to put this guy out there and throw the ball to him more. Now, Hill, he could come in a little bit more than usual because Breeze is coming back from all of the multiple broken ribs. I still cringe. I don't know if you watched post-game last night on the NFL game where Steve Smith Sr. said, this guy's got 11 broken ribs. How's he coming back? So there may be some Hill coming in there and messing this up a little bit. But even last week, Kamara had 7 catches without Breeze, with Hill starting 100% of the time. So
Yeah, I think they've heard the chatter too that, I think I would imagine, because Sean Payton's offense is very much designed around the pass catching back, and we didn't see a lot of that for a couple weeks. So it was nice to see them get back to it, and it's going to be even better to see him get back to it with Breeze. And I would tell Steve Smith, who I obviously will never meet, but if I did meet him, there's this guy, Tony Romo, who played with a couple of broken ribs too. And, these tough quarterbacks, they just know how to get out there and put the team above themselves.
Sounds good. Excellent. Question, is Leonard Fournette have an interesting prop at all today?
Sure does. So I was looking at those Fournette props because, I early on was duped so much by Fournette that I have like irrational, I'm not betting that guy, I just stay away from him in fantasy. I stay away from him in betting. With that said, his rushing line is only 49.5, and you can also get the prop for the player to have more rushing yards, and this is an interesting one because you have a guy who kind of stinks, and then you have a guy who's really good but injured all the time, but you can bet who's going to have more rushing yards between Todd Gurley and Leonard Fournette in this game.
I think those are two interesting bets. Ronald Jones is out with COVID and also had a broken finger. It's just funny because Fournette was benched last week, and here I am thinking about starting him and propping him. And in DFS, Fournette's one of the top 4 owned running backs this week. So this guy, could get some. He's gonna get some touches. He could be an interesting bet.
I think, and this is just a gut, we might have a case of chalk breaking with that. So many people are going to be all over him because he is a chalk running back. And, of course, that means LaShawn McCoy is going to have this, like this huge game. I don't know. I can't put money on Fournette.
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, good. We got some ideas there.
Oh, yeah.
All right, you ready for wide receivers?
I am, because the wide receiver props this week are the ones I think I kind of feel the most confident in, if we're going to go with confidence when it comes to betting.
There we are.
I saw a lot of lines that's all right.
Sorry, the computer has taken over my, there we are.
Oh, that's the story of my life. You should see me on my work Zooms. I'm like the old lady. Like, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, so the T.Y. Hilton bet, 63.5 yards. One of my favorite bets of the week. In terms of having an anchor, we have our prop anchor bets. This is one of my prop anchors. And I'm going to be putting a lot of money on this straight, too. If you go to our player pages on Football Diehards and you look at what T.Y. has done, 17 career games against the Texans, it's insane. No, it really is. He averages 9 targets, 5 catches, 98 yards, 0.6 touchdowns, which is a touchdown for me. He's a good bet to score. His streak is just so good against this team. I'm not worried about the new quarterback in Phillip Rivers. Look at what they've done over the past 3 games. At least 4 catches, 80 through the air, and to score. I don't understand this line at 63.5 at all. I think Hilton's going to smash it.
81, 110, and 86 the last 3 games in receiving yards. Hard to not take this bet.
And he's just, for whatever reason, he's just so good against the Texans. I mean, I'll take that history over a lot of these other props.
And obviously Houston has been very good. And right now, they're not very good. So, wow. Yeah, this is a good one. I like this one.
I like it. Me too. It's one of my favorite bets of the week. This Tyreek Hill bet is a little interesting, 77.5 yards, because yesterday it was 79.5. So we've got a 2-point movement kind of in our favor here a little bit. Look, he could do this on one play, right? He is drawing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from the slot. Hill makes good players look not so great. He's one of the worst slot corners in the league. Hill should have a field day with him. There is concern he hasn't topped 80 yards in his past 2 games, so a lot of people might be off of this bet. I am not. I'm expecting a 100-yard game out of him today.
Well, let's see. Tyreek, he had 79 yards last week against Miami. He had 58 the week before at Denver. That 216-yarder, I think, against Tampa Bay, and then 102. So, and 103 before the bye against Carolina.
Yeah.
Sounds like 77.5 is a decently high number, but I think that's a very good bet.
It's high, but it's not high for him. You're like,
yeah,
70.
Exactly. That's an
That's
excellent
it.
point.
Yeah.
He's hot right now too.
He's so good. He's so fast. I feel like we've almost been betting Marvin Jones every week now because these Lions just refuse to IR Kenny Galladay. Look, I think Jones is one of the better wide receiver twos in football on like a Jets. He'd be a wide receiver one on a lot of teams. He'd probably be a wide receiver one. He's a wide receiver two who can certainly fill in as the one, which he has done. He's filled in just fine in Galladay's absence. 5 catches is a lot, right? And at plus 107, that's really why I like it. He's hit this line in 3 of his past 5 games. The thing is, he is consistently getting targeted. He is getting so many targets, and he never gets blanketed. He never comes out of a game with no catches. So in a game where I'm expecting them to play catch up a little bit, I do like 5 catches for him.
Yeah, that does sound like a good bet. They're playing at Tennessee, who used to have a really good defense. Hasn't been very good this year, although they're in the playoffs right now. You would expect Tennessee to really want to win this game and play hard, but I still think that Marvin Jones is a good bet to catch 5 catches, especially with Galladay out.
Yeah, of course, and it helps us if Tennessee goes up a score or 2, right? Because then we're just going to see even more throwing. And it's not like the Lions have this like super threatening run game. It's just Matthew Stafford throws the ball, and Jones really seems to be on the receiving end of a lot of it.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then moving on, this Browns offense, there's a lot to like. People really like, obviously, both running backs. People really like Jarvis Landry, and I think it's really easy to overlook Rashard Higgins. This is like any other Browns bet, though. It really depends which Browns come to play and which Baker shows up to this game. But Higgins-Baker, they have this undeniable connection. He's got 6 catches in back-to-back games. He is coming off of a season-high 10-target game. We want the Giants to stay in this thing and keep it competitive, so we stick with the game script of a shootout. I do think it's going to be closer than the line indicates. I think the Giants are going to cover 6.5. I don't think the Browns are just going to blow them out by any means. With all that said, I think 4 catches is just a low line for Rashard Higgins this week.
Yeah, that does sound like a very good bet. Cleveland is probably a little disappointed after that fantastic game against Baltimore, losing that game, but they've got to win games. They've got a good record. They're in a great position. They're playing better. They're going to run the ball, but they ran the ball last week, in the last 2 weeks, and Higgins still caught, like you said, six catches. So it's a good opportunity for Higgins to be at over 3.5 this week. I agree with that.
Sure, and this relationship between these two goes back to Baker's rookie year, so you can see that they've spent some time playing football together. It's evident to me when I watch them play.
That's good.
And then of course, we wouldn't be having fun here if we didn't have a scratch-off. This is a Sugar House special. The house specials are my favorites. They pull me in every week. They are calling this one, you better bet Brandon Ayuk, 75 receiving, and just the over in this game, 44.5 points. I actually don't think that this is an inconceivable bet. It's priced at plus 240 for a reason, but I really like this prop. I think the points are going to go over. So I think we're really just, whenever I see a 2-leg parlay or a 3-leg parlay where I feel like there's a guarantee out of one of them, then in my eyes, I'm just betting the one thing, right? So we're betting Ayuk 75 receiving. The Cowboys can get smoked in the secondary. And again, I think both of these teams can combine for the over. I really like this payout, and, we'll see what Nick Mullins is able to do in the year.
That looks like a fun bet. That should be a really fun bet to watch. And ironic, Ayuk's missed some time. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row that he's played, he missed 2 games in a bye week. He's had over 75, and one of them was 75. So, and Debo is out. That's a good opportunity. Dallas Cowboys. I'm sorry, you're going to be hurting because you're watching Dallas, but at least if something goes good for Ayuk, you could be happy during the game, if that makes any sense.
Good hedge for me. It's a very good hedge for me.
Let's see. You hit my people, so I don't think I have any other. Let me look real quick here. Maybe one of the New Orleans receivers in Tyquan Smith or Sanders may be an interesting bet because with Thomas out, but I'm not excited about those guys.
Well, let's see if the book is excited about those guys. Hold, please. We have. Oh my goodness. First, I have to say Kelsey's receiving yards are now 85.5. They were not that yesterday.
Wow.
What did we say we had Hilton at? Let me just check the slide real quick. 77.5. Yeah,
77.5.
Yeah. But that's not what I'm here for. We're looking for some Saints receivers bets. Okay, you got Manny Sanders 50.5, Trey on 42.5, our boy Kamara 3.5. Here's a fun one. Latavius Murray 8.5. I love when I see a low line.
Really?
And you can also bet who's going to have more receiving yards, Tyreek Hill or Emmanuel Sanders, and also between Sammy Watkins and Tyquan Smith. So there's fun props within the game too.
Wow, those are good. I think I would take that bet against Emmanuel Sanders and Tyreek Hill personally.
Well, yeah, Tyreek is like minus 250.
It's minus 250. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those are some of the other options I was looking at there.
Cool.
All right. Let's see if I can't get the computer to let me to go to the next slide this time. Funny that there it is.
Yeah. So tight ends, they're just tough every week, and as the week goes on, it gets a little bit tougher. So I stuck with just touchdown bets for the tight ends this week. Just guys I think have a huge upside to score. We could start with Hawkinson. We talked a little bit about Marvin Jones. The Lions are 9-point underdogs. They are going to have to throw the ball to stay competitive. I like his payout at plus 175. And, he's a target for Matthew Stafford. It's not like he's one of these guys who, has a big game and then disappears. I mean, he's consistently targeted.
Yeah, he's been very consistent, and maybe even in the upward direction the last several games. He's scored 6 times this year. The last 5 games he's only scored once, and that was against Green Bay. But I like this bet, especially with the odds there at plus 175. He's playing well, and they're definitely going to him. 11 targets last week, 9 targets the week before, 8 targets the week before. Very consistent.
It's a crapshoot, but, for the score, it's a crapshoot, but that's with any player. Travis Kelce to score, probably a good bet every week. It's so wild to me that the Saints are home dogs, but here we are. It's going to be a shootout. We know that the line is 52.5. Every single player on the Chiefs is worthy of consideration to bet to score a touchdown, so I figure why not Travis Kelce?
Yeah, scored the last 3 out of the last 4 weeks. It's a good bet. I like it.
And then Logan Thomas, he's look, I'm not expecting much out of the Redskins today with Haskins. Really, I'm not. They've got the Seahawks coming to town. But at plus 300, he's a big guy. If they get down there, I don't think he's a terrible sort of bet to make. And these quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks facing a really good football team, they tend to look at these tight ends as their security blankets. So maybe when we get down there, we just need Thomas to get a look, and it only takes one, Emil.
Yep, that's a good bet. Seahawks have a weak defense. I think they're a little stronger against the tight end, but they're at home against Washington. I mean, Washington's at home. So, I like this bet. Plus 300, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's if you're going to do like a 3-player touchdown parlay and you want to treat it like you would a GPP, I think this is a good one to throw in there.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That makes sense.
It's not a lock like Devontae Adams, but it's a good bet. And then finally, Gesicki. We had Shaheen as our long shot bet last week, and of course Gesicki scored. He's scored in 3 weeks straight. He's got 4 touchdowns in 3 games. The fact that he's plus 200 doesn't seem correct to me. So I was truthfully expecting a little bit more even money. So I really like the payout here for a guy who's been consistently hitting the end zone recently.
And that's the early game. He is questionable, and so it's the early game. You'll be able to know before the game start whether that guy's going to play or not. And yeah, he's been hot. He's definitely been hot lately. That's a good bet.
We'll take it as long as he suits up.
Yes.
And then we're having some fun. We're going to double down here because I'm just so excited for what I think could be a preview of the Super Bowl. This Saints-Chiefs game. Kelsey 2 touchdowns plus 425.
Oof.
Once upon a time, this was a Rob Gronkowski bet. I used to bet this every week. Gronk to score twice because he was just doing it so consistently. Now Kelsey's only done it once this year. He's only scored 2 touchdowns in 1 game. But in terms of long shots, there's no reason why he can't score twice. And whenever I do these, it's very rare I do the 2 touchdowns score, but when I do it, if the guy scores in the first quarter, I'm like, oh, now we've got 3 more. We just need to get 1 more in 3 quarters. It makes me feel better. That's it. It makes you feel better about it.
That's a fun one. Can you check any props on Irv Smith that look attractive?
Sure can.
Because Rudolph is out again this week, and they definitely have been targeting Smith, in the red zone, goal line stuff.
Well, the book is on to you, Emil. No receiving props for Irv Smith because Kyle Rudolph is out, and they don't want to risk it. But we can see if he has a touchdown scoring prop. Sure he does. Do we like him to score, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Plus 300 to score anytime. Plus 1,800 to score first, if you're feeling super lucky.
Whoa. Okay. One last one. Cole Kmet for Chicago. Anything good on him?
Oh, we bet him last week. We bet him to score last week, and he did not pull through.
Oh, cut him.
No receiving props. Yeah, get him off my team. No receiving props, but they pretty much offer on everybody to score. So let's take a look and let's find Kmet. Cole Kmet. Plus 225 to score. 1,500 to score first.
Okay. All right.
Him and Jimmy Graham are very close in odds. Jimmy Graham's plus 260 to score.
Yeah,
so
okay.
It's like, what are these guys?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. Maybe Irv Smith would be a tempting thing
Sure.
for me. All right, that's all the questions I had. Any last things that you want to bring up?
I just want to share with you these house specials that I talk about that really
yes.
just get me. There are 2, in addition to the Ayuk one that we gave earlier, that I am just really, actually there's 3, but there's 2 that I'm really into. So there's one, Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts to combine for over 1.5 rushing touchdowns. So between the 2 of them, 2 rushing touchdowns. Maybe Kyler gets 2. Maybe
Boy,
they each get 1.
that's really tempting. I like that.
At plus 200, I like it a lot.
That is a tempting bet. Wow.
I know, it's a good one. And then another special that I think is super tempting is Mahomes and Breeze. We've talked about this game the whole show. Combined for over 4.5 passing touchdowns.
Got to get 5 touchdowns. That's tempting.
5 passing. I know. Plus
the only thing I worry about a little bit, I'm just saying this, I'm not, is they may bring Hill in at the goal line and run some balls in, which would,
Don't even speak it. Don't even
pull it out of the mind. And the only reason I say that is Breeze has been out for this amount of time. They may bring Hill in a little more of a higher percentage than they did prior to the rib injury. That's just talk. I don't really have a feel for it one way or the other.
I mean, look, when Breeze was 100% healthy, Hill was poaching touchdowns sometimes, and it was super frustrating. But I just 5 touchdowns. I'm like, my God, this is again. It's one of those. This could hit in the first half. It could. It really could.
Yeah.
And then the last one. This is like a 3-way Browns parlay that they're offering. You ready? It's Chubb 80+ rushing, Landry 50+ receiving, and Mayfield 2 passing touchdowns. When you think about these individually,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem so crazy,
No,
right?
it doesn't. What's the number?
Plus 435. In fact, let's have a little fun on the show. I'll bet it right now. Done. That's in.
Boo! That was quick. Yeah, that's a tempting bet. I like that.
Plus 435. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, that does sound like a high number. Fantastic. Those are great. It's going to be a fun day today, week 15.
Yeah. I'll be working, but the way I have my work desk set up, so like I'm looking at you right now, this is my screen. I just have to go like that. There's my TV, so I'm ready to go.
Yeah, you're going to get a crick in your neck looking over like that all day.
Well, if I just rotate the chair and not pay attention to work and just watch football, then I'll be okay.
Well, that sounds like a way to do it. If you're going to be working Sunday, you might as well have an eye on the TV watching the NFL.
Have to.
Fantastic. Great input. Let's hope all of our listeners make some money today.
Beat the house.
All right. Good luck today.
Good luck, everybody.